The hospice room smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic, a strange mix of comfort and finality. My father's breaths came shallow and uneven, each one sounding like the fragile thread of life might snap at any second. I sat beside him, holding his frail hand, watching the man who had once carried me on his shoulders now struggle even to open his eyes. "You'll take care of it, won't you?" he whispered, his voice barely more than a rasp. I squeezed his hand gently. "Of course, Dad. I'll honor your wish." His eyes, still sharp beneath the exhaustion, searched mine as if for confirmation. Then they shifted toward the doorway, where my brother David leaned against the frame, arms crossed, expression unreadable. My father had only one request before he left this world: that the family land, the orchard he'd spent his life nurturing, remain whole. It wasn't about money. It was about legacy, about roots deeper than soil. But the moment I saw David's tight jaw and the way he avoided our father's gaze, I knew trouble was brewing. After Dad's funeral, things unraveled quickly. The house was still full of relatives murmuring condolences, casserole dishes covering every inch of the kitchen counters, when David called a family meeting. His tone was businesslike, but his eyes carried something darker. "We need to talk about the property," he said, glancing at me, then at the cluster of aunts and uncles who lingered in the living room. My stomach knotted. "This isn't the time, David." He shrugged. "It's exactly the time. Dad's gone, and decisions have to be made." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Dad had wanted. He had told me, he had told David, he had repeated it like a mantra during those last weeks. Keep the orchard in the family. Don't divide it. Don't sell it. Pass it down whole. So it remains a place to gather, a reminder of who we are. But David had other ideas. Within a week, he'd contacted a real estate agent. "The market's hot," he told me bluntly. "We'd be stupid not to sell. Think about it. We split the profits, pay off our debts, maybe buy something new. Why hold on to a piece of land when we could cash out?" I stared at him, disbelief surging into anger. Because it was Dad's last wish. You were standing right there when he said it. David's smirk was cold. Dad wasn't in his right mind at the end. You know that. The words sliced deeper than he realized. I had been there every day, watching our father's clarity flicker in and out like a candle in the wind. But in those rare lucid moments, his request had been unwavering. And yet, David pushed forward. Contracts appeared. Lawyers were consulted. He spoke of offers and numbers like the orchard was nothing more than real estate. Not the backdrop of our childhood. Not the place where Dad had carved swings into branches and taught us to work the soil with our own hands. Family members grew restless, divided. Some murmured about financial security, others about promises and respect. I fought, pleaded, even begged. But the more resistance I showed, the more determined David seemed. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the orchard in amber light, his wife Melissa called me. Her voice trembled. "I can't keep this in anymore," she said. "You need to know the truth." My heart pounded as I gripped the phone tighter. "What truth?" She hesitated. I could hear the hum of their refrigerator in the background. The muffled sound of David's voice in another room. "About the orchard. About what your father actually said that night. What David doesn't want you to know." My knees nearly buckled. "Melissa, please. Tell me." Her words would change everything I thought I knew about loyalty, about betrayal, and about the kind of man my brother truly was. Melissa's voice cracked as though the weight of her secret was crushing her chest. "Your father, he left something," she said quietly. "Not just his words. There was a letter." I froze. "A letter? What do you mean?" "I was there the night he wrote it," she continued. "He asked David to give it to you after the funeral. But David never did." The room tilted around me. I sat down hard on the edge of the couch, trying to steady my breathing. "Are you saying he hid Dad's letter?" "Yes." Her answer came in a whisper. "I begged him to hand it over. He said no one needed to see it, that he was the older brother, and his word would be enough. But I saw it with my own eyes. Your father spelled out everything. He wanted you to have the orchard. Not both of you. Not to split, not to sell. He wanted it in your hands." My pulse thundered in my ears. Suddenly, every smug look, every dismissive shrug from David made sense. He wasn't just ignoring Dad's wish. He was burying it, rewriting it. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Her voice wavered. Because I can't live with the lie anymore. I've watched him twist the story. Watched him look you in the eye and deny what he knows is true. And last night, when he started talking about luxury cars and vacations with the money from the sale, I knew I had to stop him. For a long moment, all I could hear was the rush of blood in my head. Betrayal had never felt so sharp, so personal. This wasn't just about land. It was about loyalty. About trust between brothers shattered beyond repair. Do you still have the letter? I asked finally, my voice shaking. No, she admitted. He keeps it locked away. But I remember every word. And I'll stand by you when the time comes. That night, I barely slept. Memories of Dad's weathered hands pruning branches, his laughter echoing across the orchard rows, haunted me. I could see him standing there, pointing to the trees, saying, "This is for you, for your children, for their children." By morning, my grief had hardened into resolve. I called David. "We need to talk," I said. He agreed to meet at the old farmhouse, the one that still smelled faintly of apples and wood smoke. When I arrived, he was already there, leaning against the porch railing, arms crossed as if daring me to challenge him. "You're dragging this out," he said. "We could be weeks into the sale already." I clenched my fists at my sides. "You're hiding Dad's letter." His face barely flickered, but I caught it. The twitch in his jaw. The way his eyes darted for just a second. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said flatly. "Melissa told me everything." For the first time, his mask cracked. He pushed off the railing, stepping closer, his voice low and sharp. "She had no right. She had every right." My voice rose despite myself. "Dad trusted you, and you betrayed him. You weren't just trying to sell the land. You were trying to erase his last wish." His expression hardened. "Do you really think Dad would want you, of all people, running this place? You never cared about the business side of it. You were always the dreamer, the one who disappeared into books while I handled the real world. I earned this, not you." I shook my head, tears burning at the edges of my vision. This wasn't about earning. It was about honoring. And you've twisted it into something ugly. For a moment, silence hung between us, thick as fog. Then he muttered, almost to himself, "No one will believe you." But he was wrong. Because Melissa stepped out from behind the doorway, her face pale but resolute. "I believe," she said. "And I'll tell them the truth." David's eyes widened. He hadn't known she was there. He hadn't expected her defiance. "This isn't just between you and me anymore," she continued, her voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. "Everyone deserves to know what your father wrote. I saw the letter. I remember it. And I won't let you bury it." David looked between us, cornered, the control he had clung to slipping through his fingers. For once, his confidence faltered. And in that moment, I realized, the orchard wasn't just Dad's legacy. It was a test of ours. David's silence stretched like a storm cloud ready to break. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, his jaw grinding as though every word tasted of defeat. "You don't know what you're doing," he muttered finally. "This family will fall apart if you drag this into the light." I stared at him, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "The family already fell apart the moment you chose greed over truth." Melissa stepped closer, her voice unwavering now. "David, if you care about your father's memory at all, you'll give him back his words. That letter doesn't belong locked away. It belongs in his child's hands, the one he trusted." His shoulders sagged, a flicker of shame crossing his face. For a second, I almost thought he might hand it over willingly. But then he shook his head, stubbornness blazing again. "You don't understand. If people find out he favored you, what does that make me? What will everyone think? That I was nothing? That my own father didn't trust me?" The raw fear in his tone caught me off guard. For the first time, I saw not the confident older brother who had always towered over me, but a man terrified of being invisible, desperate to carve out importance in the only way he knew how. But pity couldn't change the truth. "You made your choices," I said quietly. "And now I'll make mine." The next days were a blur of whispered phone calls and tense meetings. Melissa stood by me, recounting every line of the letter she had read, every detail that matched my father's voice and intentions. Word spread quickly through our relatives, and soon the truth could no longer be contained. When the pressure mounted, David finally cracked. One evening, he arrived at my doorstep, a weathered envelope clutched in his trembling hand. His eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders slumped. Without a word, he placed the letter in my palm. I recognized Dad's handwriting instantly, sturdy strokes etched with quiet certainty. My breath caught as I unfolded the paper. To my beloved son, it began. I have thought long and hard about what matters most. The orchard is more than land. It is roots, memory, and promise. I entrust it to you, for you will guard it not for wealth, but for family. Let the trees remind you always of where you come from, and let them carry your children into where they are going. Tears blurred the ink as I reached the final words, signed simply, Your father. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with everything we had lost, and everything we were about to rebuild. David finally broke the silence, his voice raw. I wanted it to be me. I thought, if I could hold on to the land, maybe I'd finally feel like I mattered to him. I folded the letter gently, holding it to my chest. You always mattered, but you couldn't see it because you were too busy chasing proof. His eyes glistened, shame warring with regret. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough to erase the betrayal, but it was a start. Weeks passed and slowly, the orchard began to feel alive again. I walked its rows each morning, the scent of blossoms clinging to the air, the sun spilling golden light across the leaves. Sometimes Melissa joined me, offering quiet company. Other times I stood alone, listening to the wind in the branches and hearing, in my heart, the steady voice of my father. The land was mine now, not through possession but through purpose. As for David, he kept his distance, his pride too fractured to mend overnight. But every so often, I'd catch him lingering at the edge of the property, watching from afar. I didn't chase him away. Some wounds take time, and perhaps one day, forgiveness would find us. On the anniversary of Dad's passing, I gathered the family beneath the orchard's oldest tree. The trunk was gnarled, the bark scarred by decades, but its roots were deep, its branches strong. I read the letter aloud, my voice steady even as emotion swelled. Each word was a reminder, not just of my father's will, but of his wisdom. By the time I finished, silence blanketed us all, heavy with reverence. This orchard, I said looking at every face, isn't just mine. It's ours. A living legacy. A place where honesty and love must take root if we want it to survive. Melissa squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with quiet pride. For the first time since Dad's death, I felt a sense of peace. The betrayal had cut deep, but the truth had prevailed. And in that truth, I had found not only justice, but clarity. The orchard stood tall, unbroken, its branches reaching toward the sky like arms lifted in prayer. And I knew, wherever he was, my father was smiling.